What's the best Raiders finish in the next 5 years now that John Gruden is the head coach? Wins the AFC Championship, 31%, 25% win the division, 23% wins the Super Bowl, 18% make the playoffs, 4% none of the above.
Okay, Charles Davis, Fox Sports football analyst and my compadre from the NFL Network back here on the Rich Eisen Show. How would you answer that question, Charles?
Which question, Rich? Because I was focused on the eating, and all I could see was Paul Newman and Cool Hand Luke eating the egg.
Ah, very good. Brockman, who's definitely never seen Cool Hand Luke and doesn't understand that reference.
Definitely not.
Read it again to Charles.
Charles, what's the best finish for the Raiders in the next 5 years? Super Bowl, AFC Championship, win the division, make the playoffs, none of the above.
That's my man coaching the team now, Super Bowl.
That's right. It's his man. That's true.
That's my man now.
Now, is that a Tennessee Volunteer talking or a Tampa Bay Buccaneer talking, Charles?
No, that's my old roommate John Gruden. That's that guy talking.
Mm-hmm.
Super Bowl.
Okay.
Remember he put the Raiders in a Super Bowl a year later when he left. Remember, they were right there, Tuck Rule, and then the next year they were in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, Callahan.
And they went to the Super Bowl with Tampa and beat them. So he's capable, and this is a team that we thought was on the verge anyway.
Well, what's he going to do for Derek Carr? How do you think he's going to help Carr in his process, Charles?
He's going to get him focused and locked in on, if you're going to be the guy, assume being the guy. And he did that with Rich Gannon very well. And you guys know Rich's career arc, and I think he's sensational now with Kevin Harlan and in the booth. But Rich's career arc was he was such a great athlete, people wanted to be a safety when he came out. And Rich was stubborn enough to not listen to that. But his work ethic, his mindset, his tenacity, his grinded out style matched perfectly with who John Gruden is, and that's why that marriage was so terrific. Not to mention, Rich was talented as heck too.
Mm-hmm. Charles Davis here on the Rich Eisen Show. All right, let's give me the Titans' chance for an upset this weekend. Lay it out for me.
If Derrick Henry can carry it 30 times and it doesn't have to be 200 yards, but it has to be dirty, tough, tenacious yardage that keeps the clock going, keeps them in third down and short situations that they can convert, stay on the field. And I know it sounds trite, keep it away from Brady, but if they're trying to match New England, they've got no shot. And this is who Derrick Henry is, and if he ought to have fresh legs. He hasn't gotten nearly the carries he's wanted in the NFL. So this is who he is, and if they can do that, and you saw what happened with Kansas City in the fourth quarter, business decisions are made when 250 comes at you 30 times. To me, that's where their chance for winning this thing lies. And let's face it, Marcus Mariota, his team loved him before. That block he threw cemented things for him.
And then what do you think is the other potential for a road victory this weekend? Best chance outside of
well, I think we're all looking at the same one. That's Atlanta. I think Atlanta going to Philadelphia, because I think Atlanta exhaled when they got in and kind of reset and realized they're the only team in the NFC that was in the playoffs last year. And they didn't look like Atlanta last season at all in L.A. They looked like a grittier, tougher version. And you guys know Dan Quinn. Have you ever sat down with Dan Quinn and talked about a game and a boxing or a UFC analogy doesn't come up?
Mm-hmm.
That's who DQ is. That's what he wants with these guys. Let's go fight. And I thought they fought in L.A. I thought they came and punched them dead in the face. And that's what they're going to carry with them to Philadelphia. Now we get to see if Philly punches back and if Philly's offense could convert a third down. Last 15 when Nick Foles on the field, they're 0 for 15.
It's unbelievable, Charles. I mean, he really looked dreadful. He looked dreadful against Oakland.
And didn't see that coming, frankly, because this is a guy who's played well before, Rich, and I thought that this is one of the better backups in the league that you can throw out there and go play. Look, when I did games a couple of years ago when he was with the Rams, they went to Arizona, and you know how good Arizona's been over the last few years, and this was in the time of Arizona can go to the Super Bowl talk. They went there and beat them on the road with Nick Foles making some pretty darn good throws and impressive throws. So what I've seen lately has been surprising to me.
I got to tell you, man, Foles, the way he performed is one thing, but the defense couldn't stop Eli in Week 15.
Yep.
Had a problem against Derek Carr and the Raiders on occasion on that Christmas night, Monday nighter. And Week 17, you got to throw out, except for the fact that two teams that took a knee on Week 17 lost in the wild card. Yeah. So that genuinely concerns me. I'm genuinely concerned for the Eagles coming into this weekend.
Somewhere in Jacksonville, Tom Coughlin, if he's hearing us right now, is saying, this is why you play Week 17. Because remember, that was always his philosophy. You remember that year they won the Super Bowl and they beat New England, who was undefeated?
I was there Charles, that was
that was
the biggest night in the history of the NFL Network where senators were writing letters complaining about the fact that Time Warner Cable was not broadcasting us and blaming it on the NFL for not putting it out there. It was really a frustrating, exhilarating night in the history of our network, Charles.
And if I'm not mistaken, Rich, the Giants couldn't improve their position, win or lose, correct?
That is correct.
And they played.
And
it wasn't just simply to try and beat New England and break up their undefeated. That's just Tom Coughlin and philosophy. There's a game to be played. You play to win it. If you start pulling your horns in, I don't know if I can restart my motor again. All those things, whatever your philosophy is, his has always been tried and true. We play all the way throughout. Injuries be damned.
Charles Davis.
And it carried them through.
Charles Davis here on the Rich Eisen Show. You've called a ton of Vikings games in the building where the Saints are visiting right now, hoping that they can then maybe even their best case scenario win this week. Atlanta wins, and they got one more home game to go back to Minnesota. All that said, the Vikings have a great defense. I've got Harrison Smith on tomorrow's show. Yeah. What do you expect from Minnesota against the Saints on Sunday, Charles?
Well, you tell Harrison hi for him. He's a Knoxville kid, just a great, great young man, first and foremost. I actually talked with him last time we were up there, Rich, and I said, what if you get New Orleans? Because as we all know, they played opening night, and Sam Bradford carved them up and whatever. He said, well, there's no sense in even watching that tape. It's two entirely different teams, two entirely different way of going about doing things, et cetera. Here's where the rubber meets the road for me, and it's very simple. Mike Zimmer doesn't back down from anyone when he calls defense. He thinks whatever he calls and how he goes out, he's going to take away your good stuff, and he's going to limit you. How is he going to match Kamara in the passing game? To me, that's the whole key to this ball game for Minnesota defensively, because Ben Gideon is their third linebacker to go with Eric Kendricks and Anthony Barr. I don't expect him to be on the field a whole lot. They're going to have to figure a way to control the New Orleans run game in a 4-2-5 like a college defense, and have that fifth guy out there who's available to cover Kamara, because otherwise, who are you covering him with? Anthony Barr, Eric Kendricks? I love them both. Who you like in that matchup? Okay, you're going to use Harrison Smith or Sendejo? I love Harrison Smith, but he's better as an in-the-box guy. And Sendejo, you're not having him cover anyone one-on-one. He's a missile who will knock you out, but he's not a coverage guy. I think they've got to do it similar to what Denver did to Carolina in the Super Bowl with Greg Olsen. And if you've got a Bradley Roby, you commit him to that guy. In this case, it could be 137-year-old Terrence Newman. You know, who's it going to be? Who's going to be the guy that's going to run with Kamara? Because to me, it's got to be a defensive back. And preferably a cornerback, because I saw him against Atlanta.
Yeah.
And Keanu Neal tried it, Rich, and Kamara won that matchup every time.
And that's a very astute but also very Tennessee volunteer-heavy analysis of the situation there, Charles.
Yeah, and just remember, at Tennessee, one of the reasons he's got such good legs and such vigor right now is we didn't use it.
That's why there's no rookie wall for Kamara.
Well, he's been building this up for 2 years.
Well, in all honesty, too, is Sean Payton hardly used him middle of the season. Yeah. I mean, he was treated sort of like a piece of china, like where we'd see him 10, 12 times a game, period.
But you know what I loved about him? We met with him before the last game, and, he's been a part of their 2-minute offense and been an integral part. And as you said, Sean didn't use him a lot, but once he really worked him in, right? But he's been part of that throughout the season. And we had just had, we had Chicago as well and Tariq Cohen. And all during the season, you kept hearing from Chicago coaches, well, we can't use him in the 2-minute. He's still learning. He's this, he's that. So I said to Kamara, I said, hold a second. How did you learn all this stuff? And he said, well, it's pretty simple. He said, number one, you got Drew Brees giving you that look. That's your first thing. Get it right. Figure it out. And number two, Daniel Lasco, a backup running back out of Cal, sat down with him and said, this is how I learned it, flashcards, and went over all these situations with flashcards with him and helped him learn the offense. And I remember saying to myself, Chicago keeps telling me you can't, get this with Tariq Cohen. I think if he's that valuable a weapon, you know what you do? You figure out how to teach him.
Yeah, you do.
You just do.
No,
you
I
know,
mean-
it's like Mr. Holland's Opus. Remember that one? Well, he can't learn how to be a band member. Then you're a lousy teacher. Figure it out.
So I'm trying to figure out who's Mr. Holland in this.
Yeah,
Matt Nagy?
Richard Dreyfuss
Yeah.
told Eddie Thomas because it was Terrence Howard.
Right, but
Remember, he needed him. He said, "I can't teach him. He can't learn this." And Eddie Thomas screamed at him, "Then you're a lousy teacher." In other words, figure it out.
I love it, Charles. We'll chat soon. Okay, I'll see you. I'll see you. I'll see you soon. Hopefully.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Have a great time with the playoffs, Rich. Always enjoy watching you and listening to you. And hey, hello, everyone. Hope to see you guys all.
Hey, Charles.
All right, Chuck, be good, man.
Right back at
Be
you.
good.
That's at CFD22. Charles Davis.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.